Starting off with the most important practice, which of course is why we start off with it. This deep settling. And a big part of that is simply being here. Chris was mentioning how it helped him to hear that a human being, not a human doing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Just try to be a human being. As we're here, but we're constantly busily trying to create things or be something different or do something or react to something. And just this state of being like a frog sitting by the river, looking at the river, we're just here. And it's the most fundamental layer of being as far as humanness, just sitting here, being okay sitting here. And it's amazing how that can take a lot of practice. And that's that quality of learning to put our system in neutral for a little bit. To stop driving forward. Coast to a stop. Every exhalation, perhaps through your mouth, continuing to let go, making it easier to stop. Stop holding on, stop holding your breath, stop gripping your jaw. Just stop. And then when you inhale, that sense of presence and stillness and simple beingness deepens. Slowing down. Sometimes you may notice that as your nervous system begins to let go, little spots will jerk and release the way it will in bed sometimes. And that's normal. We're not trying to encourage it, but you don't want to stand in the way if you find yourself twitching or letting go. It's just your nervous system decompressing. The same thing happens in your mind. Maybe there will be some sudden increase in thought or a really strong visualization will happen, like energetic air escaping from a boiling pot. And the goal is to not grab it and try to continue it, but to simply let it go past, and then you settle back into the moment. They'll only ever last a moment if you don't feed them. And maybe something will happen emotionally as well. Suddenly there's a burst of anxiety or frustration or something as chi is released into your system. And it's just, your emotions are another sense, like touch. It's simply that your emotional system is registering, oh, a thing happened. It doesn't have to mean anything. You just let it go. You notice that, oh, a thing happened. And then you return to the center, and that's it. Just another moment. Letting things settle, letting go of the day. If it's the end of the day for you, letting go of the early part. For some people, it's the beginning of the day, so you let go of the day that hasn't happened yet. Both are just in your mind. Just let them go. Just be here. We'll move on in a moment, but if you are noticing that this sitting and letting go is really helping, and you find yourself continually softening, then please continue with the practice. I follow a schedule just because I have to follow a schedule for the camera. But every person's practice should look a little bit different. And it's different in the way that we follow what is the most effective thing for you in this moment. That's why we emphasize so much learning how to listen, learning how to know what we're aiming for. And this deep stillness and softening is foundational to what we're aiming for. And so ideally you would sit and just be quiet until you reach whatever level of settledness you're going to achieve at this moment, because it always gets deeper in the future. It never ends. And sometimes that can take a while. So as long as you feel like there's still more benefit you can get from the sitting, please continue, because nothing after this that we do will be better than the sitting. And as I mention in every class, if you are new to this session and you're joining us live, please check down below the video in the comment section for a link to an introductory lesson that will teach you what we're doing and how to do it more appropriately. That way, when you join us for these live sessions, you'll have a better idea of what we are doing, because you are welcome. Hands nice and soft, warm and soft, filled with life. Your awareness fills your hands, and then you allow that warmth and that awareness and that softness to soak in. Qi flowing inward with the slight rosy color of loving friendship. The purplish glow of
that McDonald's creature.
Don't put that into people's ideas. Now people are going to have nightmares.
I don't remember his name.
And we won't remember his name. Can't believe I asked you. Troublemaker. Fresh, clear chi softening around the eyes, behind the eyes. Gentle. Letting your mind soak into the body. Again, when your mind wanders away, the way to come back is to soften the distraction. Don't force your mind back. That just makes your chi come up and it re-empowers your mind. Instead, just lose interest in the distraction, whatever it is, and let your mind come back into your body and let it sink into your body. Remember to use appropriate posture skills, placing the weight through the body into the chair, in front of the sitting bones. Relax your back, relax your shoulders and your neck. Soften your hands. If you find yourself holding your breath, same with the mind. Don't then try to force your breath. Instead, learn how to let go of whatever is obstructing the breath. And just as a reminder, most of the time when we're doing these points, like this point here in front of the ear, you can place your other fingers in other locations, depending on how you're doing the massage, to release those areas. And I really like placing a finger just behind the earlobe in that open space there to also soften the fascial connections here at the base of the skull in this location. So as you circle in a number of these places, let your fingers find other points that also feel beneficial so that you can combine and release a greater area. But don't spread out your mind too much. Let your awareness soak into what you're working on. It's worth spending time in through here in this center space. As you soften your throat, you soften the base of your tongue, you release your chest. This area inside here and around and attached can be one of those places where we just sort of hold ourselves all the time. We hold our voices, we hold our breath, we hold our chest. And so all of this gets bound together. And so as you soften your jaw and soften your throat and your tongue, and you let your chest sink and hollow, this space opens. And by continually releasing here, we're allowing our awareness to soften that thick layer of fascia that builds up and inhibits that freedom there. We're letting all of this go. So take the time to soften there as well. Just beneath the skin, on top of the muscle. Get good at going from fully present your chi, filling the space around you, to sinking in and becoming very still and quiet, resting inside, and then coming back out again. That's one of the reasons that napping Qigong is so good. Or we're constantly going, closing after everything. We circulate, we expand, and then we close. And we wait for the chi to condense, and it naturally, eventually goes. And that's a very important cycle, to let chi sink all the way in and then come back out on its own. And the more you can do that, the better it is for you. So please take your time to cultivate that skill if you can. I got to spend extra time working on my ears. I was outside this morning in the rain for a while, in the wind, and I must have gotten some cold in my ears because it took a while for my ears to warm up and to have that sense of heat coming out. I probably worked on them 3 times longer than I usually do, and I probably will do it again later today. And the important point here in all of this is that as you work on your body, you can wonder about what causes it and things like that, but please just do the task of warming it up. Sometimes we can wonder later why something is the way it is, but we don't want to do the practice based on our mind. Oh, I was supposed to do this number, so I just move on. Instead, you're listening for what's actually happening, and you do the practice until you get the results. And that's why I want to really constantly bring us back to when we do this closing. Just like in the beginning when we were sitting, have a sense of how deep you can go. There's going to be a point when this is as good as it's going to be. So then you just return to the practice. But sometimes that takes a while. And you don't have to judge yourself for it and say, oh, but they're moving on, or, oh, I should be doing something else, or something. Yesterday, it only took me half this long. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do the practice with that part of your intellect. Instead, you do the practice with your chi, with your body, with what's going on. You're always working with what's actually happening. And so you just sit here until some kind of settling happens, and that's all. You don't have to go into it and find reasons and details. And I think that people like to do that. We're planning out how long things should go, or we're counting out the number. And that can be useful in the beginning, but as soon as you can, switch over to what's actually happening and what we actually want. In this case, it was warmth in my ears. Here, it's settling in the belly. In the same way that you would drink water until you're not thirsty or something like that. You don't have to work through it with your mind. You just drink the water. Please try to do that with your practice. Don't necessarily intellectualize your practice. Instead, simply pay attention to what's happening. Get better and better at simply watching what's going on. Be here, not in your conception of here. It's interesting. It really is like people live in some sort of ghost world, like a virtual world that overlays the real world. And they're existing mostly with that, not with what's actually happening. Their ideas about everything. It's so healing to make the switch to actually noticing what's going on. And there's no real complexity to it. It's just somehow it has to happen. Staying with your body, aware of sensation, allowing your breath to be gentle and open. Gentle, loving touch and connection. Feel that layer in your body spreading open. Today we are going to work on a separate vessel, the 8 extraordinary vessels. Today we are going to work on the Yang Qiao Mai. Qiao is like a border or an opening. It can also mean to move. So sometimes people call it the Yang motility vessel. And the point that we will focus on today, there's a couple. The main one is on the foot, but one of the points that helps to engage that aspect of our system is here, this point that we worked with before, just on the, beneath that knuckle here. It's the pounding point, perhaps, near your fist. So you can spend a moment engaging with that point. It's very useful to soften this fascial layer here that wraps around the hand anyway, because we tend to have a lot of trauma to these areas. Softening and opening the musculature, the blood flow, allowing your awareness to sink into the body. Just emphasizing this point here for a moment. Start to feel these changes. The softening through the body. If your nervous system starts to pick back up and make noise and try to wind you up again for any reason, then again, you can pause, do that quiet sitting practice, exhaling and inhaling until you settle back down. If you get a big emotional release, you can go for a quick stroll outside or just in a circle inside until things slow down and even out. And then you come back and you soften and you open and you're gentle and present. We don't have to try to force our way through things. Do you want to do another podcast episode with me tonight?
Yes.
I have an idea of what we can work on.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was thinking about it last night. I posted another free and easy wandering blog post last night. I think so far Chris is the only person that actually watched it.
I watched it. I just have to finish it.
You didn't watch it. It was only like 10 minutes long.
I really don't remember why I didn't finish it.
You probably fell asleep, which is a very good reason. I design all of my deep discussions to be soothing enough to put people to sleep.
It was midnight. It wasn't you.
Do you like my thumbnail?
I did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Your thumbnail game is going through the roof these days.
It's been fun to work on it. finally gotten much easier to deal with the technology side of all of this. It's taken a couple of years to get used to it and to get the equipment right and figure out the software and all that stuff.
I know, I watch you do it now and I'm just like, what is he doing? How does he do this? Looks like you make it look easy.
Oh, thanks. Lots and lots of hours. Nate wants me to work with him and teach classes and start a whole program and stuff. And he saw the shirts that I was wearing when I interviewed him. He said, "Oh, how do I do that?" Well, it's kind of a long process, but if you send me your idea, I'll just make it for you because it can take me 10 minutes now, you know.
Yeah.
But hours for other people, and it's fun. I should text him today, see if he still wants one. Yeah, interesting. And again, I try to let people know about my experience, and so people understand perhaps what they are doing and how to adjust for it a bit more. As I work on my wrist, I'm noticing that the softening, spreading feeling that I feel so easily now as Qi kind of moves through this layer of my system, it's just being obstructed for some reason. It's not moving. And so I'll just spend extra time here. And again, there's no pain. I don't know why it's happening, and I don't have to know. All I need to do is just be here, do the job, work on my system, keep it open. Yeah, there it goes. Woo. Feel it went all the way my palm, and who knows why. But you just start to listen and pay attention, and things change. And our bodies are always changing. So that means we have to always change with them. Large intestine 4, small intestine 3. And we can spend extra time on this small intestine 3 point. Try to position my hand so people can see it. Softening and warming. And this is part of the reason as well that I'd like people to learn how to do things like read their own tongue and to feel their own body, to know their own level of normal fatigue and flexibility, so that if suddenly something changes in your body, you can look around and be, okay, what do I need to do? Something's happening. Even if it's not in the rest of your body yet or in your mind, you recognize there's a change. And the sooner you can catch those changes, the more likely you are to actually be able to balance and heal whatever it is that's happening. These days, if I start to feel sick, I stop everything. And to me, usually feeling sick is just the most vague sense of tiredness or a kind of vague achiness that I could barely feel. But because that's not normal for me, I think, oh, I should stop. And so I lay down. I tell everybody I'm sick, and I just lay down. And because of that, now I don't really get sick anymore. And it's a much better way to treat ourselves than to wait until we feel really bad. People always push through stuff and force it. Of course, I'm lucky enough to not have to go to some job where
Yeah.
I'm outside swinging a shovel or something, or a sledgehammer or something. Outside picking strawberries in the heat, or out in the field. My original family name was the name of a farm tool. And so clearly that was a lot in my family's background. Remember to settle until you are done settling. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Remember to emphasize this downward direction. Everything is sinking down still. It can be difficult for people to place their awareness in certain parts of their bodies that are very blocked, especially when they're feeling very emotional. But usually we still have feeling in our hands, unless you're really in a bad place and you go numb in your hands too. And so pause yourself here and soften. Usually we want our awareness to be inside, below the point that we're touching, spreading through the body. But if you can't feel that, in the very least, maybe you can feel your hand in your body. And so if you're not able to feel your body very easily, then perhaps at least feel your hand touching your body and use that as a meditation. Slowly softening the hands further and allowing that warmth to soak in. And then perhaps you'll be able to follow with your awareness that warmth as it reaches into the body, releasing. That's one of the reasons to do this with warm hands, chi-filled hands, soft, caring hands. Our minds flinch away from uncomfortable experiences. But if we make this pleasant and gentle and friendly, then it suddenly becomes easier. Our awareness wants to rest there. That was one of the reasons that the Buddha had people do the Eightfold Path, cleaning up their lives, working good jobs, living good lives, treating people well, these kinds of things. Because if you're a bit of a jerk, people usually don't feel very good about themselves, and they don't want to be inside their lives. They want to leave their lives. And it can be harder to then deal with their past and to process their own feelings and to make good in the world and apologize and all of those things. It's easier just to continue being a jerk. Easier in some ways, at least. And it's the same thing in the body, that if we're kind and friendly, we rest well, we eat well, we're softening, we take the time to love our bodies, it's much easier to stay in them. Otherwise, we're always fleeing this uncomfortable place. I had so many Buddhist teachers when I was growing up. They had me sitting in uncomfortable positions because, of course, they rarely teach you relaxed posture. And, you're sitting with your knees under you or something like that until your body goes numb. And you tell them it hurts. And your job is to like meditate using the pain as the meditation focus. And they wonder why everybody quits. It's such a terrible teaching tool. It can be really great to learn to become friends with pain. And I think that is a wonderful skill to learn, especially before you get too old and your body is more likely to be hurting all the time. At some point, you want to learn to just be friendly with the experience of pain. That's fine. But trying to start there, especially with kids and things, like start with something comfortable, something friendly and easy. Your awareness starts to soak into your body. It settles more easily. You're more likely to be present. It's easier for you to breathe. Your mind gets nourished, so it's more stable. All of these things. Why take them and like force them directly into the worst possible experience and then expect them to stick with it? Of course, they go away and then that Zen master goes, they weren't strong enough. It's so elitist. That was like first 10 meditation instructors that I had. Be comfortable. It doesn't have to hurt. We get enough pain in our life at some point. Stick with what's comfortable. Nourish your body. Be friendly. It's just amazing to me. Like people who eat terrible tasting food as though it's like it strengthens them spiritually or something like that. Just eat healthy food that tastes good. So strange. So this vessel that we're working on today, the Yang Qiao Mai. In the books, it looks very much like the ones we did for the last couple of days. They sort of run along the sides of the body. And in most of the books, they don't quite agree where they are. For the most part, in Chinese medicine and acupuncture, we use them and treat them based on symptoms. Oh, this person has a certain kind of high fever. Or maybe someone has too much qi running through their system. So we use the yang qiao to help ground their excess of energy, that kind of thing. There's all kinds of symptoms that we can use. But for our purposes, we more want to connect to what it means to have this yang qiao. Like, what is it for? How does it relate? And so thus far, in our physical experience, because you remember the 8 extraordinary vessels are kind of like blueprints. They're not things that move. They're not things that are formed based on how we move and what we do. It's more that we were formed based on how they move and what they do. They were the first bits and pieces of us. And so we had the central channel that is based in stillness and emptiness, and we slowly start to divide. The 1 creates the 2 creates the 3, that kind of direction. And we have ones that divide us from top and bottom, that separate us from left and right, front and back. And by understanding these qualities of our nature, then we can begin to tap into how they all relate. And so the last couple of days, we worked on the yin and the yang wei, the linking vessels. And those were ways to understand the relationships between left and right, but also inside and outside in the sense of the channels. The way that the qi flows mostly through the exterior of our body, but relating to itself throughout the body. Top and bottom, all of the yin channels, left and right, they all relate to this one collection of innate extraordinary vessel. And the yang qiao is like that as well. But rather than working with yin and yang in the sense of the channels that are running through this aspect of the body, it tends to work more with inside and outside in the sense of interior and exterior. So it's a way that things flow in and out in that context. Inside and outside, from the inside of the body to the outside. It helps to harmonize and regulate if we have too much on the outside. It can overflow and to fill the inside. And the other way around. In a way, it also is part of how we connect to the environment, because it's inside and outside, not just within our physical frame, but with a larger world. And so there are lots of Qigong people who use that, the Yang Qiao channel. I don't want to say grounding in the sense of being grounded, more grounding in the sense of the way an electrician would use that term in case of a lightning strike. You have a place for the excess energy to dissipate into. And so this Yang Qiao vessel, in part because it connects inside, outside, and more outside, is a way to empty that excess into the earth, so to speak. And so that's one of the ways that it's used within Qigong practice, usually in people who are doing too many gathering practices. We'll try to help people ground in a normal way during normal practice sessions, teach people to sync their qi, teach people to sync their awareness into their body, stay physically grounded. But again, in that sense that an electrician might want to set up a lightning pole, is that what they call it? One of those poles that catches lightning.
Lightning rod.
Lightning rod, thank you. And then put a wire that goes down into the ground someplace, so that in case lightning does strike, it has a place to go. The Yang Qiao also functions that way. And so it's a relationship between the inside and the outside of the outside. So like with the Yin way and the Yang way that we worked with yesterday and the day before, part of the reason that I'm wanting to spend so much time in those closing settled positions to allow the awareness to sink inside the body, that's one of the ways that we engage this Yang Qiao and Yin Qiao quality. What is the outside versus the inside? And again, they're really all one flow. And that flow, in part, runs through this Yang Qiao. And so for people in the future who may watch this, who have been doing too many gathering Qigong practices and it's starting to make them twitchy and weird, their minds are speeding up, their emotions are supercharged, maybe they feel hot, maybe they can't sleep, like they have just too much energy that they've been busily pumping into their system with no way to regulate it, no way to store it, then usually I would do some acupuncture and some work through the bottom of the foot, kidney one, but also stimulate this Yang Qiao as a way to help them dump this extra qi into the ground before it damages them. Just in the same way that an electrician might in this particular metaphor. Does that make sense as an idea? Kind of a strange concept. Okay. Clinically with needles, I would mostly just use it if somebody's, like they had a sort of club foot or their leg was turned in or something like that when they were standing, maybe they're pigeon-toed or something. But in Qigong, we use it as a way to relate to the world around us. Thank you for my tea.
You're welcome. Do you need any more?
Nope, I still have plenty. Gosh, I can't find any more soreness at all in my calf. I'm like pushing around.
Oh,
This stuff really works.
I still experience a bit of soreness toward the ankle, but less so up from that.
That's
Like,
great.
It's definitely gotten softer.
What about this direction?
Yeah, generally that feels really nice.
That's really good. I like to hear it. Even this, squeezing it hard, it doesn't, not even slightly sore. This system's amazing. I remember just during the winter retreat, I was able to get a little bit of soreness out of it when I was working with Shifu, but now it's completely gone after, we're not even halfway through yet.
Are we not?
Nope.
We're on day 40.
I think 47 or 48.
Or something. Okay.
48, I think.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about how much softer we'll be by the end of this.
It's quite amazing. And Shifu says that it picks up speed because you get better at it and your body starts changing.
Yeah.
And so we're still just in that phase of working through the like thawing out and that kind of thing, getting things to move. So if it's already feeling this good, I like it. And so, speaking of this yang chao quality, here on the outside of the foot, below the ankle, if I go down below the tip of the ankle, the medial malleolus here, and I go down toward the ground, toward the bottom of my foot, on the side of my ankle here, in a place that's a little bit too difficult to describe, there's urinary bladder 62, if you want to look it up. But really, for our purposes, we just soften this whole area below the ankle above this side of the foot. And you can do that just while you're sitting in a comfy position if you like.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's a good spot. This is that spot that everybody injures when they sprain their ankles all the time. So if you look for the sprained ankle spot that most people know, that's this point. And this point is the main activation quality to this yin chao. And we usually say that it's through this point to the bottom of the foot that when the yang chao dumps all this extra energy, like if people overgather or they have a huge emotional thing or they take too many drugs or something and all this qi dumps into their system and they're buzzing and their nervous system's about to burn out, that it dumps it through this channel through the bottom of the foot into the ground. That's the way people think about it. And so we want this point to be soft and open. But that kind of thing is, in most of the world, pretty rare. But for whatever reason, in my clinic and just in the world, because people come to me having destroyed themselves with Qigong.
Which thing is rare?
This over-gathering, like hyper-stimulating your system. Not just hyper-stimulating it like through stimulants, like somebody drinks, like your friend who drank 8 cups of coffee the other morning and were twitchy and a little crazy. Not that. It's when you do too much Qigong. It's not just about being stimulated. It's about genuinely having too much energy, more than your system can handle. Because a lot of Qigong systems, they'll teach these methods that gather Qi, and they gather and they gather and they gather. And there's some idea like more is better. And you can never have too much. But it's like saying, you just keep inhaling forever, or that's why I mentioned those things, or you just keep eating food. Like you can't just continually gather. Like there's a point when your system's had enough.
You have to disperse while you're accumulating.
That's right.
To ancient wisdom.
That's right. And you have to be able to regulate and circulate, and things have to be open. It has to be the right kind of qi for your system. All of this quality, it has to have a place to store. And you have to slowly increase your body's capacity to circulate it. Like it's kind of like upgrading the electrical system of your house. And so often, for whatever reason, in my clinic, because I get to be the Qigong guy in the Qigong circles. And so people come to me, why am I having all these problems? It's like, what are you practicing? And it's always the same few teachers. They teach these few methods that they learned and they don't understand. And their students get sick all the time. It's usually associated with doing like inappropriate sexual Qigong methods and inappropriate meditation practices. And so their systems are just burning out. Surfaces that actually scorches the channels, and their channels are never quite able to return to how they were. And so you have to go through all kinds of like therapy, healing process to try to get people to recover. So this particular vessel is near and dear to my heart. For those of you who watch this in the future and who have been given Qigong practices that are just packing Qi and gathering and gathering and gathering endlessly, please take to heart the wisdom tradition, more is not better. First, upgrade your system. And then again, that point on the side of the foot below the ankle, UV 62, that bladder 62 point. But really just think of it as the ankle sprain spot. For most people, that's enough. One of the ways to think, just as long as I'm on this subject, as a warning again for people who have a little bit too much knowledge. It's another dangerous. They read a book or they had somebody just teach them what this one method and they do it every day. That if you gather Qi, some is good. And if you gather more than your system just can safely assimilate and be nourished by, which for most beginners is very low levels, just a little bit more than you need, then what happens is you get more of whatever you have, which is the function of qi. And so if you have emotional imbalances, those emotional imbalances become tenfold stronger. So if you notice that happening, be careful, please stop. Any physical blockages that you were hoping Qigong would help with, suddenly they're super blockages, because now you have a giant rush of water that hits that blockage in your stream. And now it really hurts, or it's super inflamed, or something strange is happening in your body and you're shaking all the time. For people who tend to have all their energy go through their head, suddenly their minds become supercharged and they are spinning in obsessive loops and they can't slow down. If they tend to be people that may be delusional, maybe they just have very strong imaginations, or they're not quite great at differentiating between daydreaming and the real world, which I think is a common human thing. Most people go through that kind of issue. Then suddenly they're hallucinating because their delusions become stronger than their ability to keep track of it. And so if this is happening to you, or if it's happening to a friend, please let them know that their practice is probably damaging them, and they should seek out a qualified instructor to help ground their yang qiao and keep them balanced. And they should take up another practice to help regulate all of this energy they're dumping into their system before it does permanent damage. That is John's Qigong statement for the day. Your back soft, your hips soft, your belly is relaxed. Remember that you're flexing from your hips, not rounding your back. Your shoulders should be soft. You can use your arms to help your legs turn, because your legs should just be soft. Your ankles are relaxed. You can engage your feet a bit, the way we do sometimes during practice, to allow your feet to become lively and free. Engaging your feet, lengthening your spine through the top of your head, continuing to lengthen your spine. Don't move in such a way that shortens or collapses your spine. Find a way to stay long. Make the movement as small as you need, even if your hands just go to your knees. That's fine. With enough practice, this will slowly soften your back, soften open that line beneath your hips. We are lengthening the kidney channel, softening, lengthening the back and the spine. And speaking of the yang chow and the feet, you want your feet to be able to be soft and open, your ankles open. And it's a bit of an epidemic that people wear those pointy shoes. I know I've talked about this a lot. If you find yourself cramming your feet into shoes that aren't foot-shaped, your feet should be able to spread out its toes, spread out the top of the foot, so that the top of your foot is wider than the sides of your foot in most cases. You want that shape to be allowed in your shoes. And so if you find yourself cramming your feet into shoes a lot that don't fit, or that are just very tight because they're fashionable, then that impacts your ability to be grounded. And so please do soften open your feet and find a way to make that part of your daily life. Comfortable shoes. Back to this comfort thing again.
Yeah.
And it can take a few years for your body to reshape and allow your toes to open and the bones that lead in your feet to spread and all of that fascial stuff that we're working on to slowly soften. It goes faster if you do this kind of practice. But take your time, let your body reopen again. If you're able to do all of these with no effort at this point, maybe increase the number that you do by 1 or 2. Not so much that you start to tire yourself out, but you do want to slowly increase the level of strength in this area of your body. We've been working on this relationship between the inside of the body and the surface of the body. Perhaps you can allow your awareness to sink inward. If you'd like to, you can lie, continuing to allow your body to soften. But please do strengthen your ability to experience the inside and the outside of the body and the relationship between the two. Feeling of the separation between the two, but also how they relate. And that relationship is one of the ways we think of this particular vessel. So you can feel the whole surface of your body, especially that layer that we've been working on just beneath the skin. But also have some aspect of your awareness on its relationship to the deeper parts of the body, in the bones, all through the body. Again, at some point, you're welcome to get comfortable in a seated posture. Unless you feel like staying lying down, that's okay too. You want to allow your awareness to spread from the center through the surface, noticing that connection, and then further this relationship between your inside and outside of your body with the outside and the space around you. This is part of that relationship. And tomorrow we will work on the yin qiao, which is more of this relationship and the experience from the inside. I saved it to the last because for many people it's the most difficult. But it's the same experience. And there are all kinds of relationships to these that are mental and related to higher levels of practice. But in the very least, notice the relationship between your inside and your outside and how they relate, how they're one flow.